Imagine this: Nextcloud, MySQL, WordPress, or even a multi-service platform such as AppWrite in just a few clicks. And now imagine I'm actually doing that. It really never has been easier to deploy anything in one single place. And I want to show you a foolproof way how to run your own server with Caprover and how easy it is to deploy anything there, including zero configuration for adding your own domains and grabbing HTTPS. So even if you're not too much into servers, come on, you should definitely check this one out. All right, let me first give you an overview of what we're going to do. We're gonna start with installing Caprover locally, for the simple reason that that is actually slightly harder than doing it on a live system. And I wanna show you how that works. Then we will spin up WordPress and MySQL within Caprover. After that, I'm showing you how easy it is to use the Caprover CLI to deploy your NextJS application inside of Caprover. Last but not least, we're going to have a look at custom domains and HTTPS. The first thing you want to make sure is that you have Docker installed. That's actually quite easy on all of the systems. Just go to docker.com and just download it. Once you have Docker installed, confirm that you actually have it. In my case, that's version 20. The next thing you normally do is jumping over to the documentation, and then we would be searching for running it locally. And actually there's an entry. It has quite some text, so don't worry, I've read it for you. If you scroll down a bit, there's the essential part. Copying this might work fine on Linux. On macOS and potentially on Windows as well, it can lead to file system problems. In my case, running all of this just failed without a proper error message. So this is why I'm going to show you a universal solution that runs everywhere. And the idea of the solution really is easy. We're going to spin up a Docker inside of Docker. But before we do so, check out this line from Caprover. That one says it is exposing the port 80, the port 443, and the port 3000. This is important because if my Docker in Docker won't expose the same ports, I cannot access Caprover. Okay, let me show you how to run Docker inside of Docker. We will say Docker run, and then we want it to have the same rights as the Docker on my system. That's why we use privileged. And then we need to expose the ports that Caprover is stating here. So we'll do the same, go 80 and a 443 and 3000. And since I have already a service on my system that's running on port 3000, I cannot use 3000. But that's not a problem really, because I can change the first value and say like on my system it's port 3200, but inside of the container it's 3000. Now let's give this container a name. We call it Caprover Docker. And lastly, we have to define the image, which is the official Docker in Docker image. Okay, let's run that. The thing that looks like a hash is actually the ID of the container. But we don't really need that one because we have given the container a name, which is much easier to access. Now that container is running on my system. I can show you by running docker ps and then just like grab and the name. That one tells me that Docker in Docker image is running with the Caprover Docker name and it's passing all of the ports and so on and so forth. Cool. What you have to imagine now is that this Caprover Docker here is essentially just a Linux system that runs Docker inside of it. And we want to go into that Linux system right now. And going into that container is quite easy. We run docker exec -it for interactive, and then we give it the name. And we want to say that we want to go into the terminal. All right, we're there. Let's just do a bit of enter. All right. Inside of this container, there should be Docker running as well. It's obviously a newer version than mine because I just pulled it, but that doesn't really matter. And now we are in the state where we more or less want to copy over from the documentation. Since it is proposing to use that structure, I'm going to create that directory. So I'm going to say create that directory, Captain Data. And now I can copy this line, which will then inside of this directory create a JSON file which just contains skip verifying domains true. You can check out this JSON file by running cat captain data and then config override JSON. And then it will give you the contents. All right, working fine. The next line is really just saying run caprover, give access to Docker, give access to /captain, and then go for it. So we're copying this one, we're pasting it, and we're running this one. This will now pull the caprover image. And when that's done, it will start the caprover server. Shortly after, it will give you the information that the installation of caprover is starting and that it is about to initialize. Depending on your system, this can at least take 60 seconds, so be a bit patient. You can always check the status of the initialization by running docker ps, then grabbing that ID which is in front of caprover /caprover, and then running docker logs -f and then the ID, and then you can see what's happening there. It says Captain is initialized and ready to serve you. That really means that actually it should be accessible. And you remember, we mapped it to port 3200. So let's try to access that one. Hey, that one looks good. The password for the initial setup is Captain42. And we're here. Wasn't that hard, right? And now it gets really cool. Watch this. I go to apps and I could create a new app, which is cool as well, but I can also just go to one-click apps. And there we're searching for WordPress. And we're choosing the middle one with the database. And now we're saying my WordPress. I'll just use ActiveNode as a password right here. And we'll do ActiveNode as database user as well. Don't do this, that's not safe. And we just hit deploy. And now, imagine this, it's actually doing everything for us. So the only thing we have to do really is to wait, and this probably takes like a minute or so. Okay, when it's done, it tells you that WordPress is deployed and available. But it also tells you that it might take up to 2 minutes until it's ready, and before that you might see an error page. So let's do a fast forward for 3 minutes now, just to be safe. Okay, so I think 3 minutes should be in, more or less. Let's click finish. Now what you're seeing is that it successfully spun up 2 containers, one of which is the database and one of which is WordPress itself. When I click that, I can see the information about that WordPress instance. And it also tells me that it should be available under this localhost domain. Let's check it. Oh, okay. There we go. Let's just say my WordPress, username ActiveNode. I don't really care about a password, but I'm going to copy it. And email is just like info@activenode.de. Hit me up. Log in. ActiveNode and the copied password. Yeah, do remember me. And we're in. That's your WordPress instance. That's really it. And there's just so much more on caprover. Like if you go to one-click apps, you can literally like do anything. Probably there's Bitwarden as well. Yeah, there is. So it's just sick. Even AppWrite with all of its multiple containers. But that's not just it. Like you can also just deploy your NextJS application. And we're exactly going to do that now. So first things first, we want a NextJS application. So what I'm doing is spinning up a new terminal. So I'm going to do npx create next app, and the name's just going to be Captain Cool. I go yes. Awesome. The Next.js app is created. We don't really want to change it much, but let's quickly make sure that it works. Go into it and run npm run dev. Cool. That's working fine. But we actually want to deploy that one to caprover. So let's stop it again. Clear the terminal. And now the first thing you want to do is go npm I globally caprover. Because that one gives you the capabilities of deploying with the CLI. Okay, The thing you need to do now is instead of localhost 3200, or in your case, localhost 3000, you're going to captain.captain.localhost 3200, which normally should work out of the box. Okay, I'm facing the login again. I'm giving it captain42. And now I am setting this to captain.localhost. Update. Perfect. Cool. All right. So now to deploy on your caprover instance, which is set to wildcard.captain.localhost, you have to do caprover login. But it might as well be that you're getting the error messages that I'm getting, even if all of the information you're providing is correct. So in my case, I'm doing caprover login, and then I'm providing the URL, and then I'm providing the password, which is still captain42. But the problem is it couldn't resolve this URL because this npm package is using Node, and Node wasn't able to resolve it. So to fix that, you actually need to make sure that Node can find this host name on your local network. And that is why you go to your host configuration, wherever it is. On Linux and Mac, it's normally etc hosts. So I want to edit this etc hosts file. And what you find there is always a mapping from IP to host, which is basically just saying like the thing on the right side maps to the IP on the left side. And localhost already maps properly to my local IP. But for Node to also find captain.localhost, we'll just add those two. And we're saving this and we're good to go. And then we can actually do caprover login with the URL and the password. Press enter. And then you have to give it a name of your choice. We'll just say local captain. And then it says it worked. Nice. So that's the first step of using caprover CLI to do deployments. All right. So now we want to deploy this app. So we call caprover deploy. Then we choose local captain, and then it will ask us what the deploy target should be. Right now there's only the 2 from WordPress. So let's cancel this one and let's create a new empty app, NextJS. There we go. All right, let's try again. Caprover deploy. Local captain, NextJS, and then the branch name is main. We go yes, and then it's saying it's starting the build, but then it fails. Normally, caprover deploy is sufficient, but since caprover can deploy anything, it needs to know how. And this is why it complains about a captain definition file missing. So let's create that one. Let's jump over to the documentation. Search for captain definition file. And then it says it's basically just a JSON. There's 2 variants, one of which is very simple, which is this one. And the other one, which is actually representing a Docker file. Let's use a simple one, but with a newer Node version. Okay, let's switch to your editor. Create a new file called captain definition. Copy the contents and adapt the Node version. We'll just use 18 for now. Now there's one thing you should know. Caprover says this is the simplified version of this. And this one does npm install, and then it does npm start. But Next.js also needs npm run build before npm start. So a quick fix is the following. You go to script and say, when you do npm start, also run next build before. That's it. Let's commit that. And now let's do caprover deploy again. Local captain, Next.js, main, yes. And now you can see that is actually starting to build. This takes some moments because it's taking it to a Docker file. Now let's head over to our caprover instance, NextJS, and check the deployment. It's saying creating optimized production build and collecting page data, so it's still running. Now a few moments later, it's done, and it says server started on port 80. Let's go here, and let's check if we can see it. Works. Now it's important to acknowledge one thing. What sounded like additional effort is now just really only running caprover deploy all the time. So let me show you. For example, go to the code, go to the Next.js code, go like page, and then let's say we want to kick everything out of the page besides the main tag. And then inside of it, we only say hello world. All right, let's commit that, changed page. Yep. And now let's say, okay, got a new version, want to deploy that. Yep, main, and here we go. And I didn't fast forward here. Like that was immediately fast, simply because it's using the cache of the container, which is default in Docker, but it's still sick. So let's jump over. Let's see the logs first. All right, it says it's done actually. So let's check it. Refresh. Hello world. And that was basically immediate deployment. Let's try again just to see how fast it is. Like, let's do hello world again, save it, and then go like change page again, hit caprover deploy. So I did fast forward. It was about 30 seconds in total. That's actually pretty nice. And it wouldn't take any longer if it wasn't your local system. In fact, your live system could even be faster. Okay, quick recap. We installed caprover locally. We spun up WordPress in like 0 configuration time. And also we deployed an NextJS application with the CLI. If you're now thinking that's annoying to hit caprover deploy, caprover got you covered here as well. So you go to apps, you go NextJS, you go deployment, and you can just enter your repository information here to trigger automatic deployments. We're not going to do that now. Instead, I want to show you one last thing. And that is how easy it is to actually deploy caprover on a real server. In fact, caprover's got you covered. So if you go to the docs, there's a link to immediately create caprover on DigitalOcean. But I want to show you how easy it is with really any cloud provider. I'm using Hetzner. Now within my cloud provider, I'm choosing Docker as the cloud container. Then I'm creating that container. I wait until it shows ready. Then I'm copying the IP to log into it. So I'll just SSH into it and go like login here. And then I'm actually inside of the container. And now it's basically just exactly the same thing, but much easier. You jump to getting started. If your container comes with a firewall, such as UFW, you just copy this line to configure the firewall properly. Now the next thing is really just copying this line. Same thing as before, we'll simply wait for like 3 minutes. And then you simply go to your browser, enter the IP of your server, and you go like 3000. And here we go. There's your caprover instance. We just enter captain42 and it runs on your live server. That was much easier than running it locally. Now we want 2 things, custom domains and HTTPS. Adding your own domain is pretty easy. You just have to update your DNS settings of the domain such that the A record points to this IP. So in my hosting provider, I'm adding an A record for copy, which maps to this IP. And also for everything before copy, so basically a subdomain, which also maps to this IP. You'll see why. I added a subdomain because now I can use this wildcard thing. So I'm saying wildcard, the copy, and then my domain. Okay, let's say update domain. It confirms that the root domain has been updated and that it's forwarding me to that root domain now. Okay, that's cool. That was immediate and that works. You can see the domain instead of the IP now. I log in, but I still have the problem that everything is without HTTPS. That's super easy. You just click Enable HTTPS. Provide your email. And it just takes one moment and you'll have HTTPS enabled. Hey, there you go. Last thing, sure thing, you wanna force HTTPS. No insecure connections. Yep. Alright, done. Your connection is secure. Now, all of the apps you are creating or installing, for example, my app, will allow you to immediately switch to a secure connection, and you can add your custom domains to each application. Hey, those were literally just 20 minutes and you are off to go to rock any project with Caprover now. And the best yet to come is the fact that Caprover is an abstraction layer on top of Docker, so you can simply remove it and all of your services will still be running just fine. So what's stopping you now? If you liked this video and you want to learn more about web development in general, then hit the subscribe button. And now all to say is have a great day, have a great week, be nice to each other, and cheers.